to 8. Then I'll do a silent count from 7 to 0. And then I'll play the intro, which will mute our mics for about a minute or so. And then we'll go live after that.
Okay. You can see me okay as well?
Yeah, I can see you and hear you perfectly.
Awesome.
Now we are live. Everybody who's watching, seeing how the sausage is made, we're going to give a countdown of 15 to 8 and do a silent 7 count. This is not only for broadcast purposes, but for podcasting purposes later when the audio gets repurposed. But for everybody watching, here we go. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. And here with another Sports Refuge NFL playoff preview live stream. And of course, this is the first of 2 live streams that we're doing tonight. And of course, we're going to be talking about both the Minnesota Vikings and the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course, we're going to get to the Chiefs a little bit later around 7:40. But before that, we can't let up on the team that we're talking about right now. It is the Minnesota Vikings playing in a very tough NFC North. And of course, you know, it's always going to be a rivalry between those teams, the Lions, the Vikings, the Bears, the Packers, and sometimes it's a war of attrition. And I know a lot of fans have seen it in this weird season where there's an extra playoff spot added, and now now things like COVID are starting to rage war on some of the rosters, depleting them as they go into games. But hey, there is a chance for everybody who's still in it, and mathematically, the Vikings are in it. And here with me to talk about the Minnesota Vikings, someone you've seen on the podcast on different versions. He previously represented the Vikings last year and talked with us for our MLB playoff preview about the eventual world champion Atlanta Braves. But this time we're talking about the gridiron, focusing on the Minnesota Vikings. And here with me to talk about the Minnesota Vikings is longtime fan David Kraus. How you doing, David?
Hey, Earl, I'm doing pretty good this evening, getting ready for Christmas. How about you? How are you?
Oh, yeah, I am getting there. And, you know, I feel like those times it's weird. I always said, not being a parent, not yet at least, that Christmas is hard to really get into it if you're not a parent, because as an adult, if you're a responsible adult, Christmas can be pretty much whenever you want it to be, because you can get whatever you want when you want, especially, you know, thanks to Amazon and all those other types of things. But that, you know, is one of those things you try to get acclimated to.
You got that right. Yes, and so I'm sure this time next year you'll be in a different gear.
Oh yeah, I'll see if the Christmas spirit returns. But you know, but before we get to the Christmas, we have to talk about, of course, the Minnesota Vikings, your fandom. And as I normally start these off, as I've asked everyone who's been a part of this, how did you become a Vikings fan, and what was the attraction to them?
Yeah, so I've been a Vikings fan, Earl, now for approximately 25 years, and I was a Randall Cunningham fan. I was just kind of a casual football fan growing up here in Pittsburgh. My mother raised me, but she was never into sports, didn't watch football. So the first glimpse I got of the Steelers was the 95 Super Bowl, which they played in 96, January 96 against Dallas. And, you know, Dallas just obliterated them. And I just said to myself, I don't understand why people like this team. So I just started watching, you know, just random football games. And I think it was Thanksgiving the next year. or actually later that year in November, and I watched the Vikings, and I drew some interest with Randall Cunningham, who is my all-time favorite quarterback, and I liked it. They were on TV. I liked their style of play. Dennis Green was the coach at the time. I liked him. I liked his energy, and I liked, like I said, Cunningham, and then especially, my daughter will tell you that the uniforms drew interest to me as well. The purple people eaters. I was like, oh, that's a cool looking team. So I watched a couple of their games, and like I said, watched Cunningham, and then 2 years later they drafted Randy Moss, and I said, I got to stay committed to this team.
Mm-hmm. Now, and sometimes one player, that's all it takes to get someone to follow a team, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it's the toughest thing is trying to stick with that team after that player is gone, because that's always a tough balance.
Yeah, for sure, I would agree with that. And it's I didn't follow. I knew who Cunningham was in Philly, but that was kind of an era before I really got into football. But yeah, I definitely followed his career post Minnesota, and like I said, people were surprised to hear that he's my favorite quarterback ever. So.
Mm-hmm. Going into the season, first thing I wanted to ask you. Oh, before we go into that, what is your most memorable Vikings moment? I know there has to be a lot of good ones, and of course, memorable can always be on the negative side too. But to you, what is your most memorable Vikings moment?
Well, I guess I'll stick to. There's a lot of heartbreakers, so I'll stick to more to the positive side. And there's three that come to mind. Obviously, the most recent one is the Minneapolis Miracle. They're against the Saints. They were down and out. Game was pretty much over. Saints are celebrating on the sideline, and then fourth down. Case Keenum finds Diggs on the right side of the field. Diggs catches it off of Marcus Williams' whiff. Doesn't go out of bounds alertly, just catches it, keeps going all the way to the touchdown. Takes his helmet off, throws it, gives a cold stare to the crowd, and definitely one of the. I was so fired up that day. All they got shredded the next week against Philly, but that was all definitely a memorable one. And two other ones I think of, Earl, is this is kind of a forgotten one, but I was always a big Brett Favre fan. I liked his style of play, but when he came to Minnesota and had a great year, and then when Minnesota brought back Randy Moss, Favre to Moss for number 500 for Favre, was pretty memorable, because those are two players I never thought would even play together, let alone hit the history books together. And then the third one I'll go with is so my favorite running back of all time is Adrian Peterson, and um, to see him as a rookie break the single game rushing record against the Chargers was just something special. 296 yards rushing, and just an awesome performance. And he was a rookie, just flat out dominant. That was definitely a cool stat. But like I said, number one on my list would definitely be the Minneapolis Miracle, because it's kind of a team thing. And
Mm-hmm. Expectations going into the season. I know disappointing and to the season 7-9. What were you hoping that the Vikings could do? And do you feel like they were able to make any huge additions in that offseason?
well, I mean, I guess I'll go back 2 years ago when they signed Michael Pierce from Baltimore, and he sat out the 20 season due to COVID. So I was interested to see what he would bring to the table. I know he was banged up this year, and I was looking forward to Donnell Hunter coming back, and he got off to, I think he had 6 sacks in his first 5 games, and then he got hurt, and he's out for the season now. But I was hoping that this might be the year that Cousins kind of gets him over the hump, that Zimmer would kind of run away with the division, with all the Aaron Rodgers drama, with Chicago having quarterback issues, and obviously Detroit being Detroit. I thought that we could compete with Green Bay this year for that NFC North title. But obviously it hasn't happened for various reasons. But I will say that I've been impressed with the way that Cousins has played this year. He had a couple stinker games, but for the most part, if you look at the statistics, compare him to the best in the league, he's right up there at the top.
And I know, especially with Cousins, the knock on him was, you know, you get good Kurt, and then sometimes he'll make some of the mind-numbingly shocking decisions. And it seems like they've been really minimized this year, as especially look at his touchdown to interception ratio. But what do you think has been a reason that Kirk Cousins has been more successful than he has been this year in the past?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think he's kind of, understanding the defense a little bit better. Where before he would just gonna kind of get sacked and go down, or have no pocket awareness. Now I feel watching him this year, he's been a little bit better of stepping up when he feels pressure on the outside and finding the open guy. Conklin's had a big year. Jefferson, obviously, in year 2 is becoming a superstar. Obviously they're not I don't think they're the same offense without Adam Thielen. He's missed the last couple games, and Kirk's had, a couple of, interceptions the last 2 games without Thielen out there, kind of forcing everything into Jefferson. But I think, pocket awareness is one. And I just think the development of Jefferson and Conklin's definitely been the beneficiary, with Rudolph no longer getting targets. And then obviously Irv Smith being out for the season. He's been, probably a top 5 or 10 tight end in the league as far as, fantasy production and receptions and targets and things like that. So I've been impressed with those guys. And KJ Osborne as a number 3 receiver has really stepped up and actually won a couple games, with some big time touchdowns. So I think that's all helped Kirk. And, he's learning to, it's okay to get sacked. It's okay to go down. Don't force feed things. Don't, just throw jump balls up there, when you don't need to. Throw it out of bounds, and, don't turn the ball over. And I think he only has, I believe that he's only up to 6 picks this year, 29 touchdowns, just under 3,800 passing yards, like 102 quarterback rating. So yeah, like I said, I've been really impressed with his overall performance thus far this year. He's definitely not the reason that the Vikings have lost games.
Mm-hmm. Was there a point in the season you felt very optimistic that the Vikings were going to the playoffs? Was there a particular win that stood out to you? Was it any game over the Seahawks? Was it anything else that really, beating the Packers and beating the Chargers?
Yeah, I mean, there was, I guess, you could say all of the above. Seattle has been always a problem for Minnesota in the past, especially in the playoffs. Russell Wilson's always a tough out. But the Vikings, kind of handled them pretty easily. I think Seattle and Chicago this past week are the only 2 games that they played that haven't been a 1-possession game as far as the total, the total score at the end of the game. I think that, to answer your question, I think the Chargers was huge. The Steelers win, although it was an ugly second half for them, kept them alive in this playoff picture. And most, Green Bay for sure. That's always a tough game. Rodgers had a chance there at the end to seal the deal for Green Bay, but Minnesota hung in there and finished them off. So there's a couple games that I'd like to see them, close out and win that they lost. But the Green Bay game definitely said, okay, if we can, looking at the schedule here, if we got the Lions coming up, we got the Steelers, these are all winnable games. And, I think if, take care of business, you can put yourself in a position. But like I said, the Detroit game kind of ruined things, but still in an okay chance to maybe sneak in there.
Was that the point you were worried about them making the playoffs? That loss to the Lions, especially, I know that the Lions had a lot of emotion going on with everything that occurred, but did you think not only was this the death knell to the season, that this could mean Mike Zimmer is gone?
100% to both questions. Even the first time they played Detroit, it came down to a last-minute Joseph field goal, which I thought was too close. But you get going in with a winless team. They only tied Pittsburgh, and you completely struggle in the second half. Jared Goff has had an awful year. Makes third down play after third down play. Had one of his better games of the season against Minnesota that game, and they lose on the very last play of the game. No time left. No, nothing to look forward to. So that was a real heartbreaker. And I had always been, one of those people that's kind of stood up and had Mike Zimmer's back. But, I think he's just really turning into a mediocre coach at, if you want 5 or 6 wins, you'll get 5 or 6 wins, but you're not gonna win a division title easily. You're gonna, struggle when he's, for a defensive guy, he's just not doing what you would think that he would do consistently as far as defensive pressure at the end of the game and schemes and blitzing Harrison Smith or doing whatever you need to do. So yeah, I think it's probably, unless they not only make the playoffs and win the playoffs, I think Zimmer has reached the end of his tenure in Minnesota. And yeah, that, like I said, that looking at the schedule, I saw Pittsburgh, I saw Chicago, I saw the Rams, who've been struggling with good teams, and I saw the Packers, who Minnesota already beat. And I said to myself, you take care of business, and you're in good shape. But in the NFL, you got to win. You got to beat teams like Detroit, because especially when you're playing against the Chargers or Arizona early in the season, and you just don't know how the season, an offense like the Rams coming up, you got to win games like that against teams like that.
Looking to the matchup of the NFC playoffs, in the situation the Vikings make the playoffs, who do you think they match up the best with in the NFC? Is it Green Bay? Is it the Cardinals, who might be struggling right now? Is it somebody else that you think that the Vikings can get hungry off of, get fat off of, and make a run?
I think it's Green Bay 100%. Like I said, they already had momentum from beating them early in the season, and they're just the familiarity with the team being in the division. I think they can beat them at any time. Whether it's on the road or at home. But with that said, I don't know if right now with all the injuries and the COVID stuff and the season enders too. Looks like Griffin's going to be done. Irv Smith never played. Donnell Hunter. Peterson looks like he's banged up. Michael Pierce was banged up earlier. Barr missed some time. Rashad Breeland just got cut a few weeks ago. Adam Thielen's dealing with a high ankle sprain now. Cook's out with COVID. Madison had COVID. I don't know if he's back or eligible to play yet. So I just think there's a lot of question marks on this team right now as far as the condition of their health going into this final stretch of the games. But if and when we get there, yeah, I would be, I would like our chances against Green Bay more than a little bit more than most others.
On the other side of the coin, who in the NFC playoff race scares you as a Vikings fan? The team that you don't want to see?
I guess you could say, scary, you could say Tampa Bay, just because of Brady and that elite defense when they're out there healthy. But I also think that San Francisco has historically been a bad matchup for Minnesota. Especially in the playoffs. It's just something about their defenders and the way that they play. Greg Kittle's a bad matchup for them. Samuel usually goes off. Bosa's unblockable. Garoppolo, not my favorite quarterback, but seems to play well against Minnesota when he's out there. So San Francisco seems to have our number. But yeah, I would say the fear factor, probably for sure, Tampa Bay more than most teams. Although they've got some key injuries too right now. So Godwin's out for the season. Evans is banged up, and Fournette's probably not going to play the rest of the regular season. So there's some question marks on this team as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of it plays out.
To you, is there a particular, what do you say has been the issue with the Vikings? As you said, Cousins isn't the problem this time. And I know even there are times where I've seen where Kirk Cousins actually had a good run and you couldn't blame it on him. It was some other outside factor that caused his teams to struggle, whether it was in Washington, whether it's in Minnesota. But what do you think has been the Achilles heel of the Vikings so far this season?
Greg Joseph's had a good season, but there are some kicks that he's missed. He missed a chip shot against Arizona, which would have gave them their first loss earlier in the season. But I think turnovers as a whole. Dalvin Cook fumbled against Cincinnati and earlier, I think it was week 1 actually, in overtime, and That was actually thought his knee was down, but the refs didn't overturn it. That was a huge, huge swing. They were positioning themselves to kick a field goal, and then since he comes around and does the same to win the game. But yeah, I guess to answer your question, I'm going to go, just the kicking woes, but more importantly, it's the defense 100%. They don't have especially without Hunter Griffin, who I wasn't crazy that they even brought him back, but he had a surprisingly good run while he was out there. He had high energy, he was making plays, he was getting sacks, he was all over the field, and then he just had to take some time off with his um, mentality and his personal issues that he had to take care of. So without those guys, they got some good guys up front. Sheldon Richardson, Michael Pierce are good tackles, but they're just not really getting a consistent pass rush. And like I said, the prevent defense that Zimmer had against Detroit near the end there, and doesn't that he seems to just kind of be way too lax. We saw it against Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago. And even Chicago, Fields brought them back, and they just get. I don't know if it's just they just get too comfortable with leads, or it's just lack of discipline. But that's where I kind of look to Zimmer to try to get that beefed up. But every time they seem to blitz Barr or Harrison Smith, they have success or they get something going. That's what they did against the Steelers in the first half. But yeah, just too many crunches, too many collapses late in the second halves, too many leads blown, and too many last second heartbreaks. That again, like you said, it's not Cousins by any means.
Going into the Super Bowl prediction, who do you have coming out of the NFC? Who do you have coming out of the AFC? Who wins the game? What is the final score?
Yeah, I think so. Most people will probably tell you in the NFC, maybe Tampa Bay or even Green Bay because the number one seed. But I'm actually going to go with the Rams. Even without Woods, they have. I like the OBJ signing, and I like Van Jefferson there to help out. Cup and some of the tight ends that they have. It looks like they're going to get Cam Akers back. I don't know to what extent he'll play, if at all. But you compliment him with Sony Michel and Darrell Henderson. Stafford's having one of his better seasons, and the signing of Von Miller to go with Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, and then you have Ramsey on the back end. Reader's been playing well at outside linebacker. That's kind of a scary team if everyone plays up to their capabilities. So I'm going to go Rams, and I think the AFC is just too inconsistent. I thought maybe Tennessee, if they got Henry back or if they got AJ and Julio healthy, but I don't see Julio being healthy at this point anymore in his career. I do like Vrabel a lot, but long story short, I'm going to go with I think Kansas City ends up back in the Super Bowl, and I think they defeat the Rams in a shootout. Um, I'll go Kansas City 33, Rams 29.
A lot of close games, even though the variety it ranges from shootouts and to close defensive games, but it looks like it's definitely going to be decided by either a late touchdown or a late field goal from what I've been hearing from everybody else. As we start to wrap this up, do you have any shout outs you want to give to anybody, anything you want to promote? What are ways people can reach out to you and talk Vikings football on social media?
Nothing to promote. I'm not much of a seller or anything of that nature. I'll give you a shout out for inviting me on here multiple times, and enjoy talking Vikings and answering questions. And it's I don't see Vikings fans too often, but every time I see someone with a jersey or something, I'll make sure I go up to them and say hi. And somebody with a Lions jersey, I guess a Lions fan caught me the other day. So, I can't believe you're wearing Viking stuff after the Lions beat you guys. And I said, oh, I'm a diehard fan to the end. But anyway, yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as Kraus Daddy, Kraus Daddy. I'm on Facebook pretty regularly. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, although I'm not super active. But yeah, anybody who wants to talk sports or Vikings football or Braves baseball or Jazz basketball or Ohio State college football, I'm definitely your guy to hit up. And yeah, like I said, Earl, thanks for having me on the show. I enjoy these types of things, and it's good to talk sports and get the information out there for people.
Oh yeah, and interestingly, when we first tried this, you were sort of apprehensive about it, but now you become a pro to it.
I was, I'm not a podcast guy. I don't really listen to other podcasts. I'm not one for, especially I didn't know what to expect. I didn't, wasn't sure, who would see this, what I would be asked if I was, going to be asked to be put on the spot. But yeah, it's been real easy and, real easy to talk to. And, like I said, it's, I now enjoy coming on, and yeah, it's pretty interesting to me.
But yeah, Dave, I really appreciate all your help, David. Thank you so much. And what we'll do is, as we wrap this up, we got another interview coming up very soon, as we're going to be talking Kansas City Chiefs football. But for everybody who's been watching, we'll be back in about less than 10 minutes or so talking Kansas City Chiefs. But for my guest, David Kraus, I am Earl Holland saying thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you very soon.
See you guys.